All right, so it is week 12 of the 2024 season, and we are kicking things off with Thursday night football as the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are a very surprising 8-2, take on the Cleveland Browns, who are, well, a dismal 2-8. And to help me preview this matchup, we've got Collin Sturchio. Correct me if I'm saying that wrong. But you are a Steelers fan, even though you are a co-writer with me at Cleveland Sports Talk. Shout out to our guy, Zach Chaperon, who recommended you for a Steelers fan. So, welcome in.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, how come you're a Steelers fan living in Cleveland?
So, I was born in Pittsburgh. And when my family moved down to Georgia, it's a lifeblood. You live and you die with the Steelers. I'm sure it's pretty much the same up in Cleveland.
Yes. I did not realize you moved to Georgia. I thought you were here in Cleveland. So my bad. So my bad on that one. But coincidentally, I was just in Pittsburgh last week, not for a Steelers game, but for a Penguins game, actually. And we drove back to Cleveland on Sunday when they were facing the Ravens. Didn't get to see any of the pomp and circumstance in downtown, but that's okay. But in that game, the Steelers didn't find the end zone one time, and yet they still beat the Ravens. That's the second time they've done that. Because back in week 1, they kicked 6 field goals and beat the Falcons, and they did it again on Sunday. How do you explain it?
You got to do what you got to do to win. We, being down here in Georgia, we actually went to that week 1 game. And me being an Ohio State fan, I, of course, wanted Justin Fields in. So it was great to see. And I don't know, you've just got to get the hand that's dealt with you and take it and do the best you can. I mean, the Steelers have had a great time since Lamar Jackson came into the league, just holding him off. And I think I saw a stat. He's like 68-19 against every other team. And then he's 1-4 against the Steelers. And I don't know what it is. I would have loved to have the guy on my team. I was rooting for him when he was in the draft, but we've seemed to have his number, and I don't know why.
Yeah. And you talked about it, like you guys switched from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson, and George Pickens is like, thank you very much. I will now play like an elite level wide receiver. You're not necessarily finding the end zone more, but your offense seems to be clicking at another level.
Well, I think when you have a guy like Russell Wilson in, I mean, it allows the run game to go better because you're expecting a guy like him to throw a bullet down the field. And if your O-line is working the way they should, you're going to have holes for your running game. And then you've got a threat like George Pickens over there. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Williams trade, but it seems to have done what it needed to so far. And it's opened up George, I think, a little bit. And that guy's athletic enough on his own to turn chicken salad into you-know-what.
Yeah, think about this. He couldn't do anything for the New York Jets, and what happens? He gets traded to the Steelers, catches the game-winning touchdown pass against the Washington Commanders. Who knew?
Hey, I'll take it. That was exactly what I was hoping for. And to see somebody like him just go to town and have his first game with Pittsburgh, it was great to see against the Commanders because that's a young and upcoming team. I won't be surprised if they make the playoffs this year and honestly might go far. So to have a game against them and do what we did, I'm very happy with. And to have Lamar Jackson's number again, I'm going to take it. And I hate to say it, but I don't think the Browns are going to sniff a chance at winning tonight's game.
So it's interesting you say that because they have not fared well in their recent visits to Cleveland. I think I saw the stat correctly. They are like 1-4-1 in their last 6 games here in Cleveland, which includes 2 Thursday night games. I don't know how much bearing that really has on tonight's game, if any, but just an interesting stat nonetheless.
No, completely agree. And I mean, it makes me laugh because I look at it a lot of the same way that it used to be that Ben Roethlisberger was the winningest quarterback in Cleveland Browns Stadium history.
Yes.
And I will forever love that stat. But I feel like it's all the same way, and especially with the way we've had quarterback turnover these past couple years. And you guys are, I mean, Deshaun's not there for the rest of the season. You've got Jameson and your third string. I mean, he looks good. Don't get me wrong. And if tonight's game goes south, I think you put him in and you've got a chance to at least see what he works with.
Right.
But I mean, I feel like the Steelers are running on all cylinders at this point, and it's just going to be a thumping.
I can't say it's going to be a thumping because it's an AFC North game.
I think it'll be close, but I don't. I think the score is probably going to be close, but I think the overall talent on that field, you're going to have Nick Chubb. I mean, who's going to ball out for y'all? I think so.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I just don't see your team really doing a whole lot against us. I mean, our defense is lights out. And
you did suffer a big loss, though, with Alex Highsmith going out with injury.
Oh, yeah, I know. Highsmith has been one of our bright spots. But I think if there's one thing I've learned with Mike Tomlin, it's next man up. And nothing really showed last week to me that was going to be an issue. Would I still much rather have Alex Highsmith in, of course. But when you've got a guy like TJ Watt and Cam Hayward on the other sides of that ball, you've got two monsters that are trying to get your quarterback.
Oh, yeah. I'm not trying to discredit your defense by any stretch, but in the same breath, like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt very much benefit from having a guy like Alex Highsmith along your defensive line.
Well, and I think we're very thankful to have a guy like Minka in the backfield.
Oh, because for sure.
It's going to hold
the Miami Dolphins for that.
Yeah, I will forever thank the Miami Dolphins for that, because whoever greenlit that trade might have been pulling a Laramie Tunson. Because yeah. I don't understand it, but I will forever take it. We gave him a first round pick, and I will do that again in a heartbeat.
I mean, he's paid major dividends for you. By the way, I said this last week on my live stream, or actually, no, it was on Tuesday, and I will forever say it. The Steelers are the only team that legitimately have 6 Super Bowls. Sorry, Patriots, you don't legitimately have 6 Super Bowls. You got, but I've always respected Steelers fans and the Steelers organization. I don't view them as a rival, and I know Browns fans are probably like, how do you not view the Steelers as a rival? But outside of like the AFC wildcard game a couple years ago and week 17 where we beat the Steelers to even get into the playoffs, I don't know the last meaningful like regular season game between the Browns and the Steelers. Whereas I look at Ravens Steelers, that's personally my favorite rivalry in the NFL, because when the Ravens and Steelers meet, there's something major on the line. Like whether it's if the Steelers win, then the Ravens are out, or if the Ravens win, then the Steelers are out, or the AFC North division title is on the line, or they meet in the playoffs. You get what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And also, I think part of that has to do when everybody says that the Browns and the Steelers are rivals, it's going back to before 1999, in my opinion, because you had that hatred between these two teams. And I feel like that moved over to Baltimore when the Browns moved to Baltimore. And so ever since 1999, you haven't had that in Cleveland. You've had a couple games where you had your wild card, and I think as a Steelers fan, that was gut-wrenching. That was gut-wrenching for that organization to lose to the Browns. Was it great to have Baker Mayfield for the Browns in that instance? Of course. And what I think, I mean, I'll give you the same thing. For me as a Steelers fan, do I respect the Browns? Of course. But do I look at them as a rival? Not really.
Yeah. I mean, we're on the same page there. Like, I respect the Steelers, but do I view them as a rival? No. I mean, part of that is because of what you mentioned earlier. Every time Ben Roethlisberger came into Cleveland, it was like, okay, How much is he going to win by today? Like, how many touchdowns is he going to throw? It wasn't like, how many interceptions is he going to throw? Can the Browns defense get to him? We weren't asking those types of questions with him.
Exactly. And I mean, for the most part, that's been what this is. Your biggest reason I feel as of late that anybody would even say that the Browns and Steelers were rivals was when Myles Garrett took a helmet and whacked Mason Rudolph with it. But even coming from a Steelers fan, I can't really blame him, and I'm not really that upset about it because I don't even like Mason Rudolph.
So, I like, okay, I guess you could say that kind of laid the ashes for the rivalry to come back. But then Duck Hodges came back a couple weeks later and beat the Browns. And where's Duck Hodges now? Nope, nowhere.
Exactly. And those were my points. If you had top level players still going against one another, I'd completely agree with you. But it's just there's no star power for both teams. I mean, you've got Nick Chubb and you had Amari Cooper, but there's nothing that you don't have this hatred between these two teams. I feel like
no. I feel like Steelers fans almost feel bad for Browns fans because it's like you look at the Browns, it's like every 2 years, oh, new quarterback, oh, new head coach. It's new this, new that. Whereas you look at the Steelers, it's 6 Super Bowls. Mike Tomlin doesn't know the meaning of the words losing season. He constantly drags the Steelers kicking and screaming into the playoffs when people don't expect him to. Like, for example, I did not pick the Steelers to make the playoffs this season, let alone be in position to win the division. I actually thought this would be the first year Mike Tomlin would have a losing season because I just looked at your quarterback situation, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and I'm like, okay, they're okay, but I don't know what that offense is going to look like with Arthur Smith being there and his track record in Atlanta. So you're just like, I didn't know what to expect out of the Steelers. That's why I picked them to miss the playoffs.
no, I completely agree with you. And I mean, even for me, the past few years, I've been saying 9-7 or 9-8, whatever it is. I can't remember the math off the top of my head, but I mean, I've been saying we're pretty much a 500 team, and I wasn't sure what to expect this year myself. I thought if Russell could get off to a good start, we'd have a good chance. But when Justin came in, I said, even if we lose, I'm not going to be that upset because I'd rather a guy like that have his chances to show what he can do. And if we bring Russell in, have him learn under Russell Wilson and become the future of this team. But if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that we'd be an 8-2 team right now, I would have laughed in your face.
And yet here you are, 8-2, and you really are starting the gauntlet of your season right now.
Oh yeah, completely agree. And that's what everybody said all along, is that it was going to be a cakewalk in the beginning of this year, and it was going to be the second half of the season that was going to kick us in the teeth. But I think this team has balled out and shown what they need to do, and especially Russell getting as hot as he is now, I feel like we've got a good chance to go far. We might lose to, we might lose to the Chiefs. I genuinely could see that happening on Christmas. But, I mean, the Bengals aren't that great. The Browns aren't that great. We've already beaten the Ravens once. So, for the most part, I don't see this end of the schedule really being as terrible as everybody thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I can understand that, but the Bengals are still an AFC North opponent. You know how weird AFC North games can get.
Oh yeah, completely agree. And especially that late in the year, even if you're not doing good, those teams want to play spoiler because they want the other teams in their division to do as bad as possible. So it's not like it's going to be week 17 and the Bengals are going to come in and rest all of their starters because there's no point.
Exactly. By that point, the Bengals will probably be out of it, considering, they lost to the Chargers and they lost to the Ravens. So they'll just be playing the role of spoiler for you, most likely.
Exactly.
But, I mean, you guys do have to play the Eagles. As you mentioned, you have to play the Chiefs. I think this is the first of like 3 games in like 10 days or whatever it is for you, something like that.
Yeah, but
Or
that wouldn't be the first time that this team's gone into something like that. And again, I think our biggest stretch or our biggest issues are going to be the Chiefs and the Eagles. And I mean, we've seen the Eagles have some bad games, but we've also seen that team completely ball out as they need to as of late. So, am I going to be upset if we lose to the Eagles? No, because we're going to make up for those in games against y'all. We're going to make up for those in games against the Bengals, I feel. And if you're going to lose, you'd rather lose to a good team than lose to a 2-8 team.
yeah. If we somehow win this game, I would be very much surprised. And I know like one of the big individual matchups is TJ Watt against Myles Garrett, but I'm like, TJ Watt has been so much better than Myles Garrett. I don't even have to look at the stats. I just look at what my eyes tell me. There have been some games throughout the season where I'm like, Myles Garrett, are you even there? Whereas I look at what TJ Watt is doing, he doesn't necessarily have to get to the quarterback to make an impact. Like, if he's applying the pass rush, guess what? Alex Highsmith can, if TJ Watt is flushing out the quarterback, guess what? Alex Highsmith is there for the sack. Or there's Casey Hayward. Or you send Minka Fitzpatrick on the blitz. Boom, he has a free sack.
Exactly. And that's the thing with our defense that makes it so damaging. And I'm sorry, TJ Watt is TJ Watt, and he's gonna be that presence, whether he gets to the quarterback or not. You're gonna have each quarterback, and especially somebody like Jameis or DP3, just terrified when they're in the pocket because that guy comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Granted, DTR did beat the Steelers last year, but that was with Matt Canada as your offensive coordinator, and I know.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that guy.
And I know Steeler fans wanted his head on a platter, and I
Oh,
believe
the people of Pittsburgh have wanted his head on a platter since he was at Pitt. I'll tell you that.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was the game after it was the Browns game that got him fired, I believe.
Well, and I'll tell you, going off of something like that, I was listening to the radio, I think this morning or yesterday, and there was a stat for the Browns. 5 of the last 7 head coaches, I think, either 5 or 6, have been fired after a Steelers game.
Yeah, there's been a lot of chatter about this, about whether Kevin Stefanski could be on the hot seat or not. I don't understand it. Like, I get it. The season has gone completely sideways and flush it down the toilet because it is on top of Mount Dookie, or however you want to say it. But it's like, he's gotten us into the playoffs twice. We beat you guys in the playoffs. We should have beaten the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round if they had actually called the targeting penalty, but that's neither here nor there. He's a 2-time coach of the year. He got us into the playoffs last year with by beating San Francisco, with PJ Walker as our starting quarterback, with Dorian Thompson-Robinson as our starting quarterback, and with Joe Flacco as our starting quarterback. I mean, what more does he have to do? Like, I get it. Number 4 has not played well with him. I don't even want to talk about that guy. But I'm like, why is Kevin Stefanski on the hot seat? As a Browns fan, I genuinely don't understand it.
I mean, a Steelers fan isn't the guy to go to for talking about the hot seat. We've had 3 coaches since the 60s.
Yeah, that's true. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. I get it.
But I mean, I can kind of see where fans are coming from. This season has gone so awry that it doesn't. I don't know if you can come back from this with Stefanski at the head. I don't know if you need to go and look for somebody else because sure, he's got that success behind him, but who's to say that this isn't going to derail everything they've gone for? Because in my opinion, once you made that trade for Deshaun Watson, you blew every chance you had of being successful. Because if he's not successful, what are you going to do as an organization to pick up the pieces? You've traded so many assets away to try and rebuild, that you're stuck.
Exactly. And by the way, once we traded for him, like, we weren't allowed to make fun of Ben Roethlisberger anymore because
Yeah.
I'm because of all the baggage that, well, our quarterback comes with. Like, sorry, Browns fans. Once we made the trade for number 4, we lost any credibility to make fun of Ben Roethlisberger for his stuff, I'll say.
No, completely agree. And I mean, the thing is, if you would have told me when Deshaun was with Texas that the Browns were going to get him, I would have thought that was a great trade for y'all. But sitting on the bench for a year and then coming in and just having the issues he had, and then stopping last season as abruptly as he did, and then having a season-ending injury this season, it feels like his career in Cleveland has just been plagued.
Yeah. I mean, when the trade was announced, I'm like, okay.
My old boss is a diehard Browns fan, and even he was like, I don't understand this.
Yeah, I was very confused. We want an adult at quarterback, and you go and trade for him?
I feel like you could have kept Joe Flacco last year and done amazing.
Probably. I think Joe Flacco wanted to stay in Cleveland too. The problem, though, is, and this is where I think the Steelers have a tremendous advantage over the Browns, is the Rooneys do not get involved with football operations. Like, they just...
No, you leave that to your GM and you leave it to your coach.
Yeah.
That's the way an organization is supposed to be run. Because at any time I've ever seen an organization have their owners be hand in hand with that, there's a problem. Look at Dallas and look at the situation they're in.
Exactly. Like, why do you think, as you said, the Steelers have had 3 head coaches in 40 years? Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. Probably all 3. I know Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher are already in the Hall of Fame, and Mike Tomlin is going to be in the Hall of Fame. There's a reason for that, because the owners have stayed with them. Like, they've been put in a winning situation. You know, when the going got tough, guess what? They adjusted. And Bill Cowher was like, okay, well, we're going to ride Jerome Bettis. And what happened? They won Super Bowl 40. And
oh no, I completely agree. And in 2008, I was behind this the stance that was still Bill Cowher's team, and Mike Tomlin needed to prove himself. And come 2010, I feel like it did, even though we lost a Super Bowl. And we have not done what we've needed to do in the playoffs at all. But to tell me that Mike Tomlin's not successful is laughing in the face of the Steelers. Because if the Steelers went and dropped him right now, every other team in the NFL would be dropping their coaches trying to pick up Mike Tomlin.
Oh, for sure. I've heard some of the hot seat discussions with Mike Tomlin over the past few years, and I'm like, why? I get it. You haven't had the success you wanted in the playoffs because you're the Steelers, but you're getting to the playoffs. You're winning the division. You're
not having losing seasons.
Exactly. Again, as we said earlier, Mike Tomlin does not know the meaning of the term losing season. Hasn't had one. I can't say the same here in Cleveland because it's like we've been through.
You had a parade for an 0-16 season.
Yes. Like, we've had Hugh Jackson, Eric Mangini, Mike Pettin, Romeo Crennel, Rob Chazinski. Do I even need to go over the full list of starting quarterbacks? Because that was just some of our head coaches.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot Freddie Kitchens, Greg Williams, Kevin Stefanski now. You get my point. Like, I get it. You guys have had a bit of bad luck when it comes to starting quarterbacks recently following Ben Roethlisberger. But
also, I feel like that was meant to happen because when you have consistency from 2004 to 2020, 2021, whatever year it was, you're not looking for a quarterback that's going to be the face of your franchise.
Right.
And really, it is the first time in Mike Tomlin's tenure as coach to have to look for a quarterback and find somebody to fit his scheme. And so I expected some bubbles and some problems. Did I think Kenny Pickett was going to work when they drafted him? Of course. And then as soon as it didn't work, it didn't work. But I'm not going to sit here and complain because our quarterback room is full of a 6th-round pick and $1 million that it took to land both of them.
Yeah. Like, you guys, I would say that's a bit of a win-win trade for both sides. In terms of Russell Wilson, because Denver is looking really good with Bo Nix, and you guys, like we said earlier, 8-2, sitting atop the division.
Completely agree. And I think that is the best win-win. And do I think Caleb Williams will probably do decent in Chicago? He's got a shot, but it all depends. And I'd much rather have a guy like Justin Fields to where a year after this, if Russell Wilson goes off into the sunset and does whatever he needs, we've got a young guy that's got years of experience under him and years left on his NFL playing card.
Yeah, and I think he'll develop well. I think you just gotta shape him. Like, he was playing well for you before you made the quarterback change. Was he, lighting up the scoreboard and throwing touchdowns left and right? No, but he was still a serviceable quarterback.
He never did anything under center this season to be looked at as a bad quarterback. And that was his goal, to get through the year, because Russell Wilson was named the starter to start this season, and then he had his calf injury. And do I blame Mike Tomlin for putting Russell Wilson in? No, because he said himself, I'm doing this team a disservice if I don't try it. But if we go back to Justin Fields, that's it. And right now, as much as I love Justin Fields, you'd be an idiot to take Russell Wilson out.
I do think you should still try and find ways to get Justin Fields on the field, though. Like,
I completely agree.
Like, maybe if you want to, just here's an idea. I know Jalen Warren and Najee Harris have been really good at running back, but hey, why not try having Justin Fields as a running back and have him and Russ on the field together at one point?
Or I think you can go and you can throw Russell in there every so often and just do a quarterback run play. Yeah. I know people are going to start to see it coming after a while, but here and there, it's not going to do anything to hurt you.
Right.
And as long as he doesn't get hurt, you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the Steelers do that a little bit too. Okay, we're going to put Justin Fields in there for a design quarterback run. I wouldn't be surprised if they do it tonight in Cleveland to slow down Myles Garrett, the pass rush. Which all you really have to worry about is Myles Garrett, since we traded Zadarius Smith to the Detroit Lions.
Exactly. And that is why when I say I feel like tonight's going to be a thumping, is because, no offense to the Browns, but their defense is not an NFL caliber defense. You've got Myles Garrett, and even this year, Myles Garrett is not having a Myles Garrett year.
Correct. And it looks like we're running out of time here, so yeah, we are running out of time, so we're going to wrap things up. But I got the Steelers winning this game pretty convincingly. I'll say 9-point game, 26-17.
I'm going to say this is I'll give you a 33-15 game.
Okay, a little bit more of a blowout. All right, well, I appreciate it. You helped me extend my streak. I'm remain perfect on the season. So, Denver, you're on the clock.